Good afternoon. I am Julio Frank, the still relatively new Chancellor of UCLA. It is my distinct honor, thank you. Thank you. It's my honor to welcome all of you to UCLA for the Bernard Brodie Distinguished Lecture on the Conditions of Peace. Before we begin, I would like to thank Professor Ravstiala and the Merrill Center for International Relations for hosting today's event, and of course, President Sarkissian for being with us. It really is a great honor to have an esteemed former head of state who's also a scientist, a rare combination in our world. So welcome to UCLA, President Sarkissian. I also like to welcome Eric Israelian, who has done so much to advance global peace and justice himself, a great friend of this university and one of our faculty members. Both his Promise Armenian Institute and the Promise Institute for Human Rights were established through Eric's vision. In addition to education, research, and service, one of the crucial roles of universities is to convene. The convening function is very important. It's through that function that we bring people together with multiple perspectives to address issues of great importance. This is what makes universities, good universities, intellectually vibrant places, and where great transformative ideas go, and then they go out into the rest of the world and improve the condition of the world. Universities are among the most enduring institutions. We've been around, and as many of you know, modern academia traces its origins back to the 11th and 12th century universities, where scholars devoted themselves to the enlightened pursuit of knowledge. Now, in comparison to its European counterparts, UCLA is still a very young university. Just this last Friday, less than a week ago, UCLA celebrated its 106th anniversary. Which is for universities a relatively short period of time. But we've achieved really a remarkable record of accomplishments in just this 106 years. It is now been consistently for 8 years ranked as the #1 public university in the United States. It's become an unmatched center for creativity, for innovation, and for democratic values. Our faculty and staff and students build knowledge that crosses disciplines and illuminate meaning and purpose through arts and the humanities, which we cultivate here. And then we care for our community through the top healthcare in LA and through other forms of public service, while at the same time advancing the frontiers of knowledge. When our students graduate, they are ready to be engaged citizens who understand societal issues deeply and want to improve the lives of others. But at UCLA, our stature as a leading university requires to achieve even more. It is crucial that we translate our scholarship and research into evidence that then is used to address and solve the most complex problems facing humanity. And that's the way we advance science. We translate the knowledge we produce, and that way we can improve create great benefit for society. And we do that from the way we live, from our longevity, to protecting human rights, to trying to deal with issues like polarization in our society. And that's what we're doing exactly by convening this important event today. The title of today's lecture is The Conditions of Peace. During contentious times, we should remember that we hold the power to reach out and connect with each other, even when it appears difficult. Events like today's lecture help to connect communities. They connect UCLA with thinkers and doers like all of you, and they open the doors to greater understanding, empathy, and kindness. So it is about building bridges by convening. It's about moving toward solutions, and it's about creating greater connection, something we really need in our society. I thank you for your presence here. It's an honor to welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Frank. Welcome everyone to the 2025 Bernard Brodie Lecture. I'm Cal Raustiala. I direct the Burkle Center here at UCLA, and I'm the Promised Professor at the UCLA Law School. As Chancellor Frank noted, we have been doing this lecture for, I think, over 4 decades. Past Brodie lecturers include President Jimmy Carter, Japanese Prime Minister Yasuhiro Nakasone, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Last year, our speaker was Sanna Marin, former Prime Minister of Finland, who helped Finland become NATO's newest member. This year, we're very excited and very pleased to have as our guest His Excellency Armen Sarkissian, former President and Prime Minister of Armenia. So in a moment, he's going to get a proper introduction. I'm just going to say a little bit about how this is all going to go. The topic of the Brodie Lecture, as the Chancellor mentioned, has always been about peace and security. The lecture was inaugurated during the Cold War, a time when there was significant conflict in the world. Things seemed very dark. Over the years, we lived in some more peaceful times. Today, I think it's fair to say we live in some darkening times. War is raging in many parts of the world, and President Sarkissian, in his new book, which he will talk about a little bit today, talks about some of the diplomacy challenges, the geopolitical challenges, the economic challenges that small states face as they navigate that very difficult world. So I'm going to invite Eric Israelian to introduce President Sarkissian in a moment. After that introduction, President Sarkissian will give some remarks here from the podium. He and I will then sit down in these chairs. We'll have a brief conversation about the world, about Armenia, about his ideas, his thoughts, maybe even his new book, which I learned about this morning. And then I'm going to open it up to questions from all of you. When we get to that, please raise your hand and please wait for me to call on you. We do have microphones. I think we have two microphones, so just take a moment to wait for that microphone to come. Most importantly, please keep your questions short and to the point. There is only one lecturer today, and it's Armen Sarkissian. So, to introduce our distinguished guest, I've asked Eric Israelian, the Lynch Foundation Professor at the UCLA David Geffen School of Medicine, and co-founder of the California Institute for Immunology and Immunotherapy, to come to the stage. Eric is a renowned scientist, physician, also somehow an Emmy-nominated producer, philanthropist, entrepreneur, and official designated UCLA optimist. So please join me in welcoming Eric Israelian.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor for me to be here, and I'm going to read this introduction because as you'll learn about President Sarkissian, he's really a remarkable person, and I want to make sure that I cover all the bases prior to you hearing him speak. I want to thank the Chancellor for being here. I want to thank Cal, Alexandra, Molly, and the entire Burkle Center team. I want to thank Ann Karagosian and the Promise Armenian Institute as well, because this is a really unique opportunity for many of us to have an opportunity to have such a respected and kind of accomplished speaker who has really a unique background. So I'm really excited for all of you to have an opportunity to hear him speak. And I see a lot of my worlds colliding here. So it's an honor for me to be here at UCLA, and really an incredible university. And I'm so happy that he has a chance to spend some time here. In fact, Chancellor Bloch and I went to Armenia a few years ago when President Sarkissian was in office, and I look forward to having an opportunity to take Chancellor Frank to Armenia someday. One day, if you ever run across Chancellor Frank, ask him about Avedis Donavidian, who's a famous Armenian public health scholar and a mentor of his. So it's an interesting connection for all of us. So President Sarkissian served as the 4th president of Armenia, the Republic of Armenia, and held office from 2018 until 2022. And he was born in Yerevan, and President Sarkissian's distinguished career has spanned so many diverse fields, which you're going to hear about, but academia, diplomacy, international organizations. He graduated from Yerevan State University in 1976 with a degree in physics, and later earned a Doctor of Science in Theoretical Physics and Mathematics after completing postgraduate studies in 1978. And from 1976 to 1990, he was a professor of physics at his alma mater and founded the subdivision for computer modeling of complex systems at Yerevan State University's Department of Theoretical Physics. His academic career took him abroad with significant positions at prestigious institutions. In 1984 to 1985, he was a visiting researcher and later professor at University of Cambridge's Institute of Astronomy. His work continued at various international universities, including Moscow State University and universities really across Europe and the United Kingdom. And then in 1991, he transitioned to diplomacy, first serving as Armenia Charge d'Affaires and later as ambassador to the United Kingdom until 1996. He also held the role of Armenia's senior ambassador to Europe and was Armenia's ambassador to the European Union, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and the Vatican. His diplomatic work expanded Armenia's global presence and helped to strengthen ties with European institutions. His experience in governance extended to Armenia's domestic affairs as Prime Minister of Armenia from 1996 to 1997, and he was later reappointed to Ambassador to the United Kingdom and the Vatican between 1998 and 2000. And from 2000 to 2013, he expanded his influence and global affairs through roles as special advisor to the president of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and as senior figure in multiple international organizations, including the EURASIA House International and the East-West Institute. And he also worked with major corporations, including British Petroleum, Alcatel, and Telefonica. In 2013, President Sarkissian returned to diplomacy as Armenia's ambassador to the United Kingdom before becoming president of Armenia in 2018, where I had the honor of being there at the inauguration. And during his presidency, he worked to expand Armenia's international standing through his tenure, although his tenure was marked by political challenges, and ultimately he left office in 2022. Throughout his career, President Sarkissian has received numerous accolades, including Armenia's first-degree medal for services to the homeland in 2017, and the St. Gregory the Illuminator Medal from the Catholicos of all Armenians in 2008. He has authored numerous scientific articles in the fields of physics, astrophysics, and political science, and holds an honorary doctorate from the National Academy of Sciences in Armenia. He's a highly respected figure in both political and academic circles, and he is married to Nunes Sarkissian, and they have 2 sons and 3 beautiful grandchildren, and I have the honor of being godfather to one of his grandchildren. So we are connected in so many different ways, and it's an honor for me. And he continues to be recognized for his significant contributions to Armenia's development and global engagement. So without any further ado, please welcome President Armen Sarkissian.
Is it afternoon or evening? So let's say good evening. Mr. Chancellor, it's a great honor to be here. And these are not just formal words that I have to say. I really think and I really feel that it's a great honor to be here for many reasons. I think when I was born by my parents, one of them was a young architect and the other one was professor of psychology. I think somehow my life was connected with education. Although formally, if I think about my life, I was listening, Eric, I hope I will ask my friends next time not to go into that sort of a detail. There were more that you missed, but it looks like it was the last thing that you were saying at my funeral. No, please. I think there's a simple way of saying that. I had 4 lives. The first life was in science and academia. The second life was in Armenian diplomacy, and later I was prime minister. And this transition happened because of act of God. Armenia became independent. I was in Cambridge and London School of Mathematics. The president asked me, can you open an embassy? He was academic office president, Levon Ter-Petrosyan. I said, okay, I'll try. I did it in 2 months. And how do you do that? How do you open an embassy? Armenians, they're everywhere. I think in 2 months we had the building, the budget, everything was opened. And then he called me and said, can you open an embassy in Paris? It's okay. Then in Brussels, then in Berlin. Eventually, instead of saying, thank you, Armen, he made me ambassador. So initially I thought I can be simultaneously at the same time, I can be a scientist professor at Cambridge University and so on, and be an ambassador. No way. So I ended up diplomatic life. It ended up being prime minister. Then it was another act of God. Well, I can say now, in 1997 I had cancer and I had to retire. Of course, when you do that, that sort of thing happens and you're a politician, there are always conspiracy theorists. People have imagination of that they don't take that someone can be. Although I had a vision, and that vision was very simple for Armenia, if I can make it clear. Armenia should become a country, a small state of a global nation. I think engaging the whole diaspora in the future of the country. Small state, global nation. And I will explain you why. So that was my second life. Then I had a third one because of act of God. I was ill, I had to go to hospital, and then I became a businessman, had also my center where I was the director at Cambridge University, EURASIA House, that were looking at politics, economic development of countries of Eastern Europe, former Soviet Union up to China, Eurasia. I enjoyed that. I even enjoyed being in business and making money. But because of my first life, the way I was born, I got a bit tired of this. So I said, maybe it's the time for me to go back again, finish what was cut because of act of God. And when unexpectedly in 2007, I was offered to become president of Armenia with the new constitution, which had made Armenia a parliamentary republic, which I was not happy. Parliamentary democracy is a very complex and complicated thing. And our constitution, mostly written by colleagues and advisors from Germany, was not taking into account that Armenians are not Germans. They're a bit different. And I think it takes time for you to get specific values of democracy and so on. So I went back, and that was my fourth life. So, Eric, fourth life. Now I'm living my fifth life, and I'm a beginner. I'm trying to find out what is my fifth life. And one of the things that I found that I never thought that I could write books. Well, I wrote books and articles on theoretical physics and mathematics. That was easy. But then I was encouraged by two people, and speaking to you, I would like to remember their names. Two very prominent, very famous people that had also a huge impact on my thinking as well. So first one was Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger and I met years ago, early 90s, when I became a member of New York Institute of East-West Institute. And he was honorary member of that. Can somebody close that because it's blowing on my head? Otherwise I have to wear a hat. I don't like air conditioning. And I don't think it's healthy. What's the normal temperature of our body? Chancellor? 36.6 in centigrade. It's around 90-something in Fahrenheit. Okay? So, why on earth, when my body's normal temperature is 36.6, I want to stay in a room where the temperature is 20. And my body has to struggle, basically push a lot of energy to balance my internal temperature with the external one. And this is unhealthy. I think it's a habit. Okay? I was in the Gulf before coming here, Chancellor, and it was in Saudi and it was in Qatar. It was 40-something degrees. And every room was with air conditioned. I had a simple question. Arabs living there, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, how would they used to live? There was no air conditioning. Their body was adapting to that temperature, and they were healthier. So please switch it off. So, two individuals, Henry Kissinger. Somehow we met in 90s and we became friends, and we were meeting regularly in New York, and we had this tradition having breakfast together at the Palace Hotel, and I learned a lot from Henry because he was very pragmatic, very deep, very smart. And he was someone that was representing what I believed in all my life. That you have to live every day to learn something new. You stop learning, you die. Not physically. As a human being, you die. And I do remember years ago, Financial Times had an interview with me, 1 page, and they put the title, The Day That You Stop Learning, You Die. And he was exactly the example of learning every day. He was 100 years old. I was asked by Wall Street Journal to write an article about him, and it was a great honor because Henry told them, ask Armen, and I wrote what I've learned from Henry Kissinger, and it was a very successful article. Then he was 100 years old, and he flew from New York to London to celebrate his 100 years anniversary with a lot of friends. And I was invited. I was the baby, among others, okay? You can imagine who was there. And then he told me, Armen, are you going to write? Because he encouraged me to write about the small states and also the second theme. Years ago, because I'm a physicist, I used to teach quantum mechanics, quantum physics, theoretical astrophysics, and I always was fascinated with the fact that this nature is unified. If you look at the behavior of elementary particles, mechanics, quantum mechanics of that, and then you compare it with social behavior, I was finding a lot of similarities. And I was trying with that. We are a part of this nature. The laws that are governing particles and the laws that are governing humans, they should not be very different. So I started some 15 more years ago working on that, and I named it Quantum World and Quantum Politics. And there were several people that I was discussing, and Henry was one of them. This is the great guy of classical diplomacy, like Isaac Newton in classical mechanics, Henry Kissinger in classical diplomacy. So having a new idea and discussing with him, especially about quantum politics, and we were spending hours and hours discussing this issue with him, and he was next time coming with a lot of questions. So he was trying to learn when he was 100 years old, being Henry Kissinger. And when I wrote the book about small states, he asked me, send me the manuscript. I thought, Henry Kissinger, 100 years old, is going to sit and read 300 pages of a manuscript of Armen Sarkissian? But I sent to him. Then he called me and said, when is the last day of the publication? I said, this in September. Fine. That day, the last day, I got his opinion written. Henry Kissinger, 100 years old, read it, and I used one sentence as a blurb. I mean, this shows that you live a life, a full life until the last day when you are 100. And you are Henry Kissinger, you try to learn something. And the second person is someone that I have great respect. It was Joe Nye from Harvard, from Kennedy. And Joe was, again, a good friend. And until the last days of his life, because we're in communication, he was supposed to come to my conference in London called Advance Tomorrow, ATOM. It's about health, well-being, and longevity in the future. And our first panel was geopolitics and health. And with Joe, we were, and we had these discussions because he is the creator of very famous principles and ideas, which is the soft power and the hard power. And I introduced in my quantum politics another one, which is called smart power. And we were trying, the person that I had to explain this was Joe, because he was the creator of soft power and hard power. And it took a lot of discussions, and so, which were very useful for me. Eventually said something that I really enjoyed it and understood that he is taking that seriously. He called me, and he was in Japan before dying. He said, Armen, now I understand what is smart power. I said, what? Because I read the book about elementary particles and quantum mechanics, and there's this thing called Higgs boson. You need Higgs boson in order to put together elementary particles. So probably smart power is a Sarkissian boson to put together smart and hard powers. You really need that. And it's clear that when you look at small states, being small, it's vulnerable. Being small is difficult. But in this new quantum world, what we see is that the world has changed, and even the small states of this world that were small still 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, they were always small states. You go back 200 years, there were around 200 small states, but they were always under the umbrella of a big one. France had a lot of, Germans have Prussia, Russian Empire, and others. But now it's different. Why it's different? Because just simple statistics. You look at the statistics from economists or the World Economic Forum or anywhere. Which countries are the top countries in the world in innovation? 10 countries. 2, United States, United Kingdom. The other 8 are small states. Small states like Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Luxembourg, Israel, Singapore, with Singapore universities, chancellor, fantastic, and so on. So what are the top 10 countries in the world that are leading in e-government, new methods of government? All 10 are small states. And number 1 is a very tiny state called Estonia. Not big. You look at GDPs, not overall GDPs, but per capita. Top 10, not United States, not Britain, not France, not Germany, Norway, Sweden, Luxembourg, Singapore, and so on. So small states are becoming more and more important. All aspects, all aspects. I mean, you hear about them every day. Who knew 50 years ago what is Qatar? All negotiations on peace were happening in Geneva. They're happening in Doha now. 350,000 people. 3rd, 4th, reserves of gas. But there is one word that the book is called, my book is called, The Club of Small States. But it should have been the Club of Small and Smart States. Because they are smart. There's another country that has the same amount of gas, it's Turkmenistan. It's not even close to Qatar. Having oil and gas doesn't mean anything. And in the book, I am examining what are the sources of success for small states. How can you be successful if you are small? You can be successful because in your DNA there is something which is called resistance. In your DNA there is something which is called survival. A lot of small states had to fight to survive. And if you are smart, you will find the way of making your natural resource a great advantage and make that natural resource or source the resource or the engine of your success. For different countries, it's different. What is the natural source of, or natural wealth of Armenia? In the case of Saudi, it's oil. In the case of Emirates, it's oil. And they are very smart because several tribes came together under strong leadership of Sheikh Zayed, created something stable, predictable, a country that is investing in the future. In the world, the first University of Artificial Intelligence was created where? In the United States? No. In UK? No. In Abu Dhabi, in Masdar City. And the guy who is running that university is a fantastic guy, Professor Eric Zink, American Chinese. That's the world. If you are a small state, can you be militarily powerful? Of course you can. Future wars. How do you win the future war? By the number of soldiers? No. By the number of drones. With artificial intelligence. You are a small state with 1 million drones, which you can afford. Then you can have a huge army. The world has changed. Small, smart states are there. They are going to make a lot of change for this world. And I'm lobbying that the small, smart states have to come together to create a new organization, S20. Why on earth there should be G20 only, representing big, powerful states? They are small, powerful, smart states, which are run much more smarter than the big ones. It's a huge challenge to survive a small state. It needs visionary leadership, like in Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. 3 communities hated each other, were fighting all the time. Hindu, Muslim, and Chinese. One guy with a vision, with the strength of his power, brought them together, created a country called Singapore, one of the most successful states in the world. A country that is today also a bridge between the West and China, the West and Far East. Ireland. What is the natural resource of Ireland? Irish people. Half of the US presidents have Irish descent, and some of them helped Ireland a lot. Smart policies, smart tax policies, smart investment policies. A small Ireland has become, which was sort of a colony of Britain for centuries, has become a very successful state. Okay? What is the source of success of United Arab Emirates? It's oil, but smart oil, or the oil for smart people. United Arab Emirates has a national space agency. They have sent a satellite to Mars. And it's run by a PhD, a lady with a PhD. Lady, Sarah, in United Arab Emirates. Ahead of the time. You go to Qatar, you will be amazed. The new leadership in Saudi Arabia is a state with an oil potential of this size. But for centuries, their political impact was this much. Now with the new leadership, this political impact will start growing. So it's all about, are you smart or not? Armenian nation. What's our natural resource? It's not oil. Armenia as a state has some minerals, some gold, some molybdenum, and so on and so forth. But the real natural resource of Armenia and Armenians are people. And there's one way that we can be successful with a model of small state but global nation. And every Armenian from abroad, from diaspora, should be a part of that. That's the only way that we can be successful. Should be proud, should be citizen, should be contributing, should be keeping his monies in Armenian banks, getting tax advantages or double taxation treaty with the United States and so on and so forth. Then we can be very, very successful. And we have to be smart to survive in the environment, political environment that we live. There is no way that Armenia can be successful if we don't have good relations with the neighbors, be that in the north or the south. We have to find a way of doing that. There is no way that Armenia can afford itself not to have good relations with the Gulf. There is no way that Armenia can afford not having very deep, good relations with the United States and Europe and Russia. Because if you are a small state, the challenge is survival. Somebody has to tell me how much time I have. I was professor at university, I can speak forever. So just tell me when. Sorry? 5 minutes?
10 if you like.
Sorry?
5 or 10, whatever you like.
Okay, fine. Well, so what do you want me to talk about? I think it's very important. The book that I wrote about small states is not about Armenia. There are 9 states there that are successful, that I examined. They're all different. Some of them are monarchies, the others are democracies. I was looking at why a country like Botswana is successful. I was not interested in human rights in that state or democracy or not, no, because they are all different. But the sources of their success, they have similarities. So you can model it, or you can have a formula of a success of a small state. Of course, the 10th state is Armenia. Well, I had to write about Armenia. I don't consider that Armenia is a successful state, but anybody reading that book would have told, you think you are smart? Why you are smart, but you were president of Armenia and you didn't make Armenia successful? There are reasons for that. And it's not about me, or it's not about only me. I had my mistakes and I had my successes, but it's about our nation. So in order to make again Armenia successful, we want to understand why we were not successful. Okay? This is a country that won the war against Armenians, won the war for Karabakh early 90s, and we lost the war in 2020. Why? What was wrong? In 2 words, we were not smart. I'm simplifying it. I'm always careful with this 2 words and 1 word story. There's a famous joke, political one, which is not a joke, which is a reality, because years ago in 1994, I was asked by President Petrosian to go to Dublin. I was ambassador in UK and also in Dublin because President Yeltsin, I think, was traveling to Europe. He came to Dublin. That's the famous story when he was not coming out from his airplane for an hour and journalists were standing outside waiting for him. The reality was, they say, he was happily after having a bit of vodka. When he came out, he was asked the question, and the question was, Mr. President, can you describe the state of Russian economy in 1 word? And they translated to him and he said, good. Okay, in 1 word, good. He said, no, Mr. President, in a couple of words. The translation was in 2 words. Wrong translation. A couple of 2. He said, in 2 words, not good. So I'm very careful to give simplified formulas for any country, any situation, anything. So, but one has to be also reasonable. So with these words, let me thank again, Mr. Chancellor, let me thank the Center. And it's a great privilege for me to speak here, because I know even my good friend John I spoke here at the center. And the names that you said, it's a great privilege for me. And I take that as a small gift from you guys, Chancellor, you and Eric, to my humble personality, and I will try to make sure that you will be proud of me in the future. Not today.
Well, thank you so much for coming out. And just to note, Joe Nye gave this exact lecture, I think 4, maybe 5 years ago. I can't remember how many years ago. So I want to ask you about small states. I want to talk about your next book. One of the things I really liked about your book was that you identified something that I think a lot of people don't realize. I like to tell my students that there are about 200 states in the world, and the median is about the size of LA County. So we're 10 million. We would be an above average state in population, and of course in economics, well above average. People don't appreciate that because we tend to think about the bigger states. So I thought that was an interesting feature of your work. So let me ask you first about the conditions that you mentioned. So a lot of people have argued that small states have done well because over the last 75 years, let's say since the end of World War II, relatively peaceful world, that's allowed small states to thrive. Now maybe we're entering a more aggressive period. We see invasions of Ukraine by Russia. We see war in Africa, in the Middle East, et cetera. Do you think those conditions that you identified will still hold going forward, or is it a time when we should expect small states to be more vulnerable, maybe gobbled up by their bigger neighbors?
Yeah. So I think small states they are always vulnerable. And that's why, it's like in nature, in our body, how do we become strong? We train ourselves. You do exercise. What does exercise mean? We put our body under stress. And then our body reacts to that stress, and it makes our more stronger, greater resilience, and so on and so forth. So when you are under pressure of losing something or something, that's sometimes bad, but it's also good because it strengthens your immunity. Small states have stronger immunity than the big ones. I think small and the big states, we're living in the same environment, in the same world. And I don't want to discuss the failures of small states, but you look at their success. As I told you, there are 9 of them. I can easily give you 20 of them. And that's the number that I would like to have, small successful states, S20. And they will be also an example for the others to join the club. It should not be an organization. This is not an alliance, military or economic alliance. One is in Singapore, the other one is in Botswana, the third one is in Rwanda maybe, because they're also a successful state, although controversial in many ways. The other one is in Luxembourg. But from economic point of view, they are very successful. But the other one, let's compare with European states, big ones. Germany. Germany was living in the same world, in the same conditions as the others, and looked very successful. What happened? Well, you all know that. I think if you think about Germany today, people will think and will discuss the failures, the economic difficulties, political difficulties, the rise of the far right in Germany. Why? Because they were not smart. And I can give you a couple of examples of that. The core of German industry were a couple of factors. One of them was cheap Russian gas. Fine. Cheap Russian gas. A country like Germany could have easily created an alternative to Russian gas. Spend a couple of billion euros, build terminals in Hamburg, and buy liquid gas from Qatar, from Emirates, from United States, from anywhere. Why on earth this industry was created by Japan and Korea with the Gulf. Why you are not doing that? Why you are used to the cheap one? And thinking that it will be forever. I asked this question to Angela Merkel.
Can I say something about that?
Yes?
So she was your student, you told me today.
Yeah, well, a student informed that back in 1980s, before traveling to Cambridge, which was another act of God, and working there for 2 years, I used to go to East Germany, and I used to work with in an institute very famous, which is called Albert Einstein Memorial Institute in Potsdam, and then giving lectures at Dresden, Leipzig, and Humboldt University in Berlin. And she was at that time PhD student doing her PhD in quantum chemistry, and she used to come to my lectures on quantum mechanics. And years later, I met her together with Chancellor Kohl, when Chancellor introduced me to young Angela Merkel, new Minister of Nuclear Safety and Environment. And the first thing she told me said, "Don't you remember me, Professor?" Well, I didn't. But since then we became friends and we could talk to each other. The thing is that the relations were established under Chancellor Schroeder, and the committee that was looking at tariffs and where you buy gas was the ministers of Chancellor Schroeder. I just want to remind you that Chancellor Schroeder later became the chairman of Nord Stream, the gas pipeline that was running from Russia to Germany via Baltic Sea. I don't have any comments. But Angela Merkel, Germany was leading country in the world with Siemens Energy in nuclear energy. And she was a physicist, chemist, physicist. That she knew that nuclear power plants are not dangerous. The disasters that we had, Chernobyl, Fukushima, they were disasters because there were human errors, not the technology. In Fukushima, why on earth, having you know that there are huge waves coming, you put the nuclear power plant on the beach? Put a bit far. 2 kilometers, there will be no Fukushima disaster. In the case of Chernobyl, it was very simple because this was Soviet Union. And nuclear power plants, they didn't have training facilities. So Soviet engineers were trained on actually working nuclear power plant. In order to work there, they were switching off the security systems. 1, 2, 3, 13 of them, you switch off 10, you start playing with the thing, it gets out of hand. And you get Chernobyl. Nuclear power plants, nuclear energy, in order to get to the new world where it's green, we get energy from sun, from wind, and all of that. That's fantastic. There are countries that are doing that. If you take Norway today, Norway is getting 1.5 times more energy than their needs are from hydro and wind. All oil that Norway has, they are selling, and the money goes into state fund, which is one of the biggest in the world, and they invest everywhere, including in California. They make a lot of money. Smart. They could have done something else, but they are smart. In Germany, Angela Merkel decided under the pressure from the Greens to basically close the nuclear power plants and the whole industry. I mean, Germans were #1 in the world in building and running nuclear power plants. It doesn't exist now. She decided that we have to develop our sort of a green agenda, which is fine. But how do you do that? Do it reasonably. Let's go to electric cars. Germany was always famous with their cars. German engineering, they're genius. Mercedes-Benz. They took over Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Volkswagen. The car is engineering art. You look at the engine and everything. What is the electric car now? It's an iPad made where? China. It's an battery made where? China. Wheels, 4 wheels. Chinese companies are shareholders of Michelin, Pirelli, and all of that stuff. The other things is the body is plastic. There is no engineering there. It's an electric car. You drive an iPad. Okay? That's why Volkswagen today has huge difficulties. Fine. The air in the city becomes clean. Fine. But do you know how dangerous is your battery? Lithium. Huh? Can you do anything? Can you refine this battery? You are running 200 miles on this battery. Tomorrow there'll be another battery for 500. You have to throw that old one, the car and the battery together. Why don't we think about the future before jumping and doing things? Yeah, the air in London, Paris is cleaner. So what are we going to do with the mountains of old batteries with lithium, which is a poison? I think we have to plan our future.
Tell us about the new book. So you mentioned quantum politics. I know you told me you have it coming out this fall, that it's somehow marrying your understanding of quantum physics and your understanding of politics. How do they fit together?
Well, I told that for years I had something inside me that I was every and each time when I saw some political event, social thing, human behavior of people in big numbers, that was reminding me some behaviors of particles or statistical physics and so on and so forth. And I couldn't help myself why this is happening. Then I started thinking that there must be a lot of common things, because we are still a part of this nature and we behave, even if we are individuals, we have our power, we have our decision making, but when the number is 1 million of us, we start behaving like a body. Okay? And there are rules that are running these bodies. And with the time, our human behavior becomes more and more quantum. Quantum in the sense that it's not classical. This world, the way it's run politically, economically, is not the same that like 30 years ago. It's different. The way we run. The way you order food 30 years ago. 30 years ago, nobody will believe that we will have a video conference live with Australia. We have it. Or a small country like United Arab Emirates will send a satellite to Mars. We have it. Our basic values and understandings and beliefs, ideologies are changing with the time. We don't want to believe in that. We think, and we are trying to find comfort of stability. What do you want to find? Predictable world. Okay? That's in our mind. Everybody's. When I was buying a house, I was thinking, well, I should buy another house nearby because my son will live with me. A lot of elderly people laugh. The young boys and girls are silent. Nobody lives in this world because everybody wants to be independent, free, travel, and so on. I have 2 sons. They are all over the world. And the hope that they will live nearby to me, it's a dream. I love that. I think in our culture, our Armenian family is very important. We come together and so on. But the world is different. Okay? The way we run business. Okay? Do I have to travel to run business? You could have had me also here on Zoom. Well, I would not enjoy, because while speaking on Zoom, I cannot see your faces and smiles, and because that sort of encourages me. I'm saying something either smart or stupid. I can judge from your faces. That's a trick that sort of a trained professor knows, because when you have 150 students and you are teaching them theoretical physics, not about Hollywood or about acting, about physics. You have to keep them 2 times 45 minutes, their attention to you. So you have to be an actor, a Shakespearean one. 45 minutes, they listen to you, maybe something exciting about how to understand physics, how to ask questions. But it's difficult. So this is better than with Zoom. But you can run your business with a Zoom. The world is different, and in the West, people are becoming more and more individual, more and more lonely. In United Kingdom, the statistics is there, and this came from our conference on ATOM, on health and well-being last year in November, at the Science Museum Group, and we had top specialists and so on, by Chief Medical Officer of UK. Huge number of young girls are trying to have to do suicide, because there is a conflict. All of us here, we are two. We're not one. Each of us, there's Armen Sarkissian and there's Armen Sarkissian virtual, on the web, on Facebook, on Instagram, and everywhere. And doesn't mean that necessarily that we're the same. Sometimes the virtual is much better than the normal one. Sometimes the other way around, okay? But if you are a young girl, unsafe, you're entering, you want to be like Kim Kardashian in London. Your family doesn't have money, and you are not as smart as Kim, because she is smart, the way she runs her business. They all make themselves like beautiful photos, and then there is a conflict with the real life and the virtual life. It's amazing, it's a fact. Even at universities, I was speaking to Manuel Muniz, one of the best universities in Spain. They have several percentage of their students with psychological problems, loneliness, absence of family relations, knowing each other. When it's difficult, there's someone that will help you, you will share. I mean, the thing that when you have a problem, you go to, what, consultant or what? Psychological consultant? What is it called? What?
Therapist?
Therapist. I never understood this. The best therapist was my mom. So now my best therapist is my sister and my wife. My boys, I share with them. They are free, they say anything that they think about me, and I can survive, I can share with them. Why should I go and tell my life story to someone? My family knows my life story, my friends know my story. So the real life is with family and friends, but we are losing it. Values of democracy. How many times you vote for President of the United States? Once in 4 years or 5 years? Once. How many times do you vote for President of the United States per day with this? 4? 14? In Facebook? And all politicians depend on this. In United Kingdom, they changed several prime ministers with elections? No. Just don't. They didn't like that Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, was having beer during the COVID. Well, I'm simplifying the story. There was a huge attack on him on Facebook. This is changing democracy. This is changing the way politics is run. And I'm simplifying this, because what we have lost also, what is true and what is false. There is a notion at Oxford University, post-truth. What does that mean? Doesn't matter what is the truth. I do something bad, but then I have 1,000 boys and girls sitting and writing. Each of them has 50 virtual names, and 1,000, 50,000 writing in Facebook, the non-truth becomes truth. So how do you run business? How do you run politics? Politicians can be destroyed, not because they are doing something wrong, because if you have money, you can create an image or you can destroy an image. Welcome to the new quantum world. This is just a service I told you. Why? Because I hope that you'll buy the book. And the book is 400 pages. I cannot tell all of that to you.
Okay, one final question from me, and then I'm going to open it up to all of you. So we're sitting here behind the flags, Armenia, US, California, UCLA. What lessons would you offer for California, as sometimes compared to a nation state, sometimes thought of we're the fourth biggest economy? Fourth today. So were we a state, we would not be a small state, we would be quite big. But what sort of advice would you offer to us to navigate this world?
Be smart and pragmatic. You are fourth or fifth, doesn't matter. Are people happy here? I live now in London, and what's happening in the last year and a half, all of the wealthy people, successful people are leaving London because of the changes in taxation and so on and so forth. Okay? Some people say it's just why the richer people should be taxed more, and then the others, fine. What's happening? London was the capital of the world, financial capital of the world, London City. It's not now. Banks have gone. Like a bank, HSBC Bank, is leaving London, okay? Because money is liquid. It moves so easy. If you're a multimillionaire or a billionaire, how much does it take you to move from London to Monaco? You go to Dubai now. Half of Dubai are British, the other half are Russians. And if the wealthy person lives in London, pays less tax, house staff, cars, you live there, your children go to school there, you pay all of that. Then you live there, you start thinking, why shouldn't I invest in this or that, and so on and so forth, and so on. I think managing poor and rich is the challenge. Because there are poor people that deserve a good life. There are rich people that have to be fair, but to find the middle, golden middle, I think I would say my advice would be find the golden middle. Because then you will be continuing being successful and people will be happy as well. Try to avoid populism. I was born in a country that was the most populist country in the world, called Soviet Union. Because we were promised that we will all live in communism. We were told that we are all equal. We were told that we own everything in Soviet Union. But there were some people that were more equal than the others. Politburo members of Communist Party. At the moment, and that system didn't work at all. It didn't have the industry. There were no, and the tradition continues until today. Russia is not producing famous cars, famous washing machines, dryers, but it's producing famous tanks. That's the structure of economy. Tanks, airplanes, fighters, not something good for people. So they import that from Turkey, from Europe, from China. But they produce tanks. Okay. So Soviet Union was speaking about equality. The moment it collapsed, the whole wealth that everybody had, they found a fantastic way of distribution of that whole wealth. Every and each Soviet citizen was given a voucher. And that voucher was a piece of your wealth, from the wealth of 350 million of the biggest country in the world. So what happened? Whoever had a neighbor or a friend in the West, some dollars, some cash, bought these vouchers for peanuts. And then they privatized huge entities for nothing. For nothing. So try to avoid populism. It doesn't work. The problem is that the moment Soviet Union collapsed and the United States and the West won the Cold War, the happiness and the hype was so big, so important. Everybody in the West was saying, that's it. Soviet Union gone. Democracy, free market, capitalism have won. We don't have any further problems. There was even a scientist called, with a Japanese name, wrote that this is the...
Fukuyama.
I know the name, I don't want to pronounce it. Wrote that this is the end of the history. In fact, that was the beginning of the history, of the new era. So it made everybody relaxed. If China becomes capitalism, then it will become democratic. If Russia becomes capitalist, it will become democratic. It was the beginning of the new era. And that era is called quantum era. Of the new world with phenomenal new technology, and the source of this technology is quantum physics. If not the fathers of quantum mechanics, we'd never have this. So quantum means not only that small is powerful, individual power with this, but it also means that our power is based on quantum physics as well. There is more in the book, but you have to buy it.
Okay, we'll save that. Okay, so questions. We like to start with a question from a student. So if there are students in the room, have their hands up.
Or whoever feels as a student.
We have our mics ready to go. Let's go right over here. Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Ladies first.
Okay, that's fine too. We'll go.
Sorry to disappoint, I'm not a lady. First and foremost, I'm Yervan Maravosian. I'm a third-year student here at UCLA. And I was really happy you brought up the example of Singapore and of small states like Singapore, El Salvador, that essentially sacrificed democracy. You also brought up South Korea. Oftentimes we forget that South Korea used to be a lot more authoritarian than North Korea. I want to get your perspective on the fact that is sacrificing democracy worth it in regards to growing your state? We look at Singapore today, yes, it's rich, yes, it has these phenomenal universities, but it was an authoritarian state for a long time. So South Korea, and currently we see El Salvador is essentially getting rid of its parliament under Bukele to put forth its nation. Would you say that this is an option for Armenia? And as you mentioned, you were opposed to the Constitution of 2007 with it becoming a parliamentary democracy?
So the question is
sacrificing democracy credible?
No. They are not connected to each other, because I can give you examples of a lot of small successful states that they are fantastic democracies. The same Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Luxembourg, they're all democracies. So the question is, you cannot have a sort of a mold for everybody. Each of us we have our history, our culture, our identity. Okay? I was referring to the Armenian Constitution of 2015, which is a parliamentary constitution. And it was written mostly by German consultants helping Armenian lawyers, fine? But what they have forgotten one simple thing: Armenians are not Germans, okay? The same constitution will work very well as a democratic constitution in Germany, but it will not work in Armenia, that has lived in Soviet Union for 70 years. The mentality is different. It will not work in Georgia, or it will not work in Kazakhstan.
To give you a trivial example, Angela Merkel, because we referred to her, was my guest in Armenia. Well, we knew each other for years, we were friends. She came to visit President of Armenia, so we had a meeting, a lunch together, and then tete-a-tete discussing. When it finished, I said, okay, I will take you to the car. She was frightened. I said, no, no, no. You are the president. I'm just the chancellor, prime minister. I said, so what? I said, no, no, you cannot. Because in parliamentary constitution, the president is higher. He's the head of the state. Okay? And the prime minister is elected, comes and goes. And we had this friendly fight. Can I go down with her to her car or not? So I won, because I was her former professor. But that shows the difference of mentality. You take a policeman on the street, a traffic police in one of the former Soviet republics, that stops a car and just says, sir, you have done something wrong. The sort of a usual outcome for years was what? Just bribe. Okay. Can you imagine that in London, on a street? Policeman stopping you and you can bribe the policeman? Nobody even thinks about it. So that shows the huge difference in culture. So when you are molding your country, you have to take into account there are no formal sort of cliches. You do this, you will be successful. No. You have to go deep into the fabric of the nation. Remember your history, culture, what sort of people you are. Okay? Including in California, even if it's... You have to understand California and Arizona and Massachusetts are different. I'm not speaking about smaller states like Armenia and so on, with the history of several thousands of years. Living 70 years in Soviet Union, when everybody thought that we owned everything. You were working at the bread factory in Soviet Union. Everybody at the end of their term were taking 10 breads home. And the security standing was saying it's normal. Because we own the factory. The salary is small. They were taking 10 breads. They were selling one for their family, the other 9 selling it to their neighbors. That was normal. It's in the mentality of people. When you are trying to build up your state and to this dramatic change, you have to take into account the fabric of it. That was the genius of Lee Kuan Yew, because he was a part of that society. And he kept his sort of devotion until his last days. I had the privilege of meeting him twice. But when I was in Singapore, I went with his son to the house that his father lived. The son was prime minister. It's one of the most modest houses that I've seen in my life of a president and a prime minister of a country. Just simple 2-bedroom house. So you have to be knowing what you are doing, and there is no model for everybody. Every and each nation has to find its leader, its model, its way of introducing and developing or evolutionary, coming to the most human values like democracy and others. Well, the West went to Afghanistan. Were you successful? Telling Afghanis that their wives are equal to them. Okay? But in Saudi Arabia, I was in Riyadh. Ladies are driving, less hijabs and so on. Evolutionary process or so on. The moment you start forcing, it doesn't work. You have to take it into account. So a long answer to your simple question. The answer is, no, it's not a dialogue. You write me a letter.
Okay, next set of questions.
I'm happy to hear your opinion, but if we have started dialogue, then it will not finish.
Right over here in the middle. Okay. You got it? Yes, dark shirt. Thank you.
Excuse me, Thank you so much, President Sarkissian, for being here and for all the
I'm
insights.
Sarkissian, I'm not Sarkissian.
Sarkissian, sorry. And for the insights that you provided. I have a question about something you mentioned earlier. You mentioned how Armenia needs to keep good relations with neighbors from the north, the south, US, Europe, and everywhere. How should Armenia strategically position itself in today's world to start and maintain those relations in the long term? And how can Armenia use its quote-unquote oil, which you said were its people, to achieve that?
I think first of all, we have to start using that oil. We are not doing that. Our constitution says that, initial constitution was saying that in order to become president of Armenia, you have to live in Armenia 10 years and have only Armenian passport. Well, you think about it, your best guys are living outside Armenia. Even the First Republic, today is the day of the First Republic, of Independence Day of First Republic of Armenia in, 1918, 28th of May. All of the leaders, most of the leaders of that republic and further Soviet Armenia came from outside, from St. Petersburg, from Moscow, from Vienna, from Tbilisi, some from even Constantinopolis, some from Paris, and so on and so forth. Why? Because the so-called aristocracy, not the aristocrats, royalties, but aristocracy in the meaning of Old Greek the definition by Aristotle, those who are educated, smart, and so lived abroad. They didn't live in Armenia in 1920. They didn't. Even the first leaders of Soviet Armenia, they all came from outside. I think you have to invite them. How on earth? So today's constitution says that you have to live 6 years in Armenia and have only Armenian. Who needs a leader that has not been challenged by this new world, living outside, has accumulated a lot of experience, have made a lot of mistakes, a lot of successes, is ready to lead? So you need a leader that was born in his village and lived all his life in the village, and you want to run a small state and a global nation. How do you do that? The name of successful Armenians abroad is huge. If you are not Armenian, you will never even guess that these people are Armenian. In politics, in business, in entertainment, in sports, everywhere. If we don't use that, okay? I can give you examples. Our compatriot, Nubar Afeyan, he's professor in MIT. Very smart guy, has created what? Moderna. Everybody knows that. Was it useful or not? I don't know. The vaccination. I have my own opinion about vaccination. I had 5 vaccines and I got a very bad case in COVID. Because I was president, I had to lead people getting vaccines. So I had Pfizer, I had Moderna, I even had Chinese. Then I was taken to hospital for 10 days after all of that. But a guy is absolutely educated, smart, successful businessman, scientist. He cannot be minister of science in Armenia because he had to leave every time, give his Canadian passport. I gave him Armenian passport. Come and live in Armenia for 4 years, hoping that on the 5th he will become minister. One of the best doctors in the world is Lord Darzi. A guy, he's Armenian, family from Iraq. He's Lord, he's the guy that has created keyhole surgery. He's leading huge Imperial College research and so on. He cannot be Armenia's Minister of Health because he has to give up his British passport, his lordship, come and live in a village in Armenia or in Yerevan, and hoping that on the 5th year he will become minister. He was Minister of Health of UK. He was advising US presidents, Chinese, Japanese government. He has built the biggest hospital in the world for ladies in Qatar. They have spent $7 billion there, and he was leading them to do that. And that guy cannot be minister in Armenia because of our constitution. So how do we do that? Change the constitution, allow the Armenian power from the world come and help Armenia. Sorry.
Okay, a lot of hands. We only have a few minutes left, so it's going to be a quick question.
Why? I can speak a couple of hours.
I know you can. Right here in the middle. Yes. He's got it.
Hello, I'm Summer. I'm a first year from Singapore. And I wanted to ask about your thoughts on the ability of small states to influence on the global arena and possibly even shape conditions that could be more favorable for small states. Thank you.
No, I think the small states have huge impact on global affairs, politics, economy, and many other things, okay? They have huge impact. Today, the thing is people don't realize. In United States, President of the United States was visiting the Gulf. And he visited 3 countries, 2 of them small states. President of the United States, in the Gulf, Qatar and United Arab Emirates, both of them, small. United Arab Emirates is one of the biggest states in the world that is developing data management and data storage. I mean, kilometers of data storage. The third country was Saudi Arabia. It's not a small state, but you can consider that Saudi as a small state because it has huge potential, but small impact politically, compared with Emirates, or even compared with Qatar. They have huge impact on global affairs. Positive, negative, it's a different story. Look at the impact that Israel has on global affairs. Small state. Do you like it or you don't like it? It's a different story. It's up to you. But can you say that these states are run by bigger ones? Can you say that Israel is run by United States? I will not agree with that. It's an independent, strong state on its own with huge military, it's a small state, but has powerful military. And that's going to be in the future as well. Okay? Innovation, as I was telling you, done by small states. Your own country, Singapore, is a phenomenal country. Well, I spoke at the university, National University of Singapore, that is also our partner in Atom Institute. One of the best universities in the world. You go there, they are buying Nobel Prize scientists from America and UK and France, taking them to Singapore. Huge labs. Singapore is ahead of many, and it's a tiny state. You don't even have a space to live. There's no space to live in Singapore. But look at how organized it. But I will add something that you don't know. The first church in Singapore was built by Armenians. And that street where the church is until today is called Armenian Street. The most famous hotel in Singapore is Raffles. And it was built by one of my predecessors, Sarkissian brothers, 160 years old. Now it's owned by whom? By Qatar. Welcome to the new world.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Please join me in thanking President Sarkissian.